Hi you guys, this is Allison hanging out in my Space 2 craft, and it's time for another layout. This one, I have quite a few pictures. I'm going to filter a few off, but it's from when I first started working in the Space Vehicle Mock-Up Facility, SVMF. At this time, I was the deputy chief, and I was observing a lot of the training, learning the process and what was going on. And this is a crew escape class. So back then we were still flying space shuttles. And so this is our big space shuttle mock-up called the full fuselage trainer, because it had the full body of the spacecraft. Minus the wing, it did not have the wings. And so the crew would come and practice getting in and getting out of the vehicles. And so we even had these folks here come in from Florida to assist the crew in getting in. And so they do it in different vehicles. Sometimes they would do it in a vehicle like it's on the launch pad. This emergency was for after landing emergencies. So they're fully suited crew members, and they have to deploy a slide just like an airplane slide and slide down it. But we have to make sure that they don't get injured. So we use these big landing pads here in case. I think at one time they did have a crew member that when they landed, they broke their foot or their ankle or something. So our technicians from our building would help and assist and keep an eye on things. And they had an instructor up there at the top showing them how to deploy it and all that kind of stuff. And then we have the suit technicians helping them in and out of their suits. So it was a big activity. And so I got to observe it and take pictures. And one time I even got to suit up in one of these suits and pretend I was an incapacitated crew member and get drug out of the vehicle. That was so fun. So this is the paper that I pulled for this. I don't think you guys saw me make this paper kit because this paper came in after I was finished making all the other paper kits. But this is, maybe it's Doodlebug? I don't think it is because it's one-sided paper, but it's all space themed. So right now I don't even remember who makes this, but it's one-sided paper, and there's some constellations, plaid, phases of the moon, polka dots, yellow stars, moons and stars, funky stars. There are 2 sheets of each that I pulled. I didn't pull 2 sheets of each one. I only pulled 1 each of these 3. But they are a perfect match to the colors. The pumpkin suits or launch and entry suits are orange. NASA blue is the color of all of the stairs and structures that hold the vehicle. So we have a lot of this NASA blue around. And even if you look at their logo, it's the Crew Survival, orange and blue. So what I was thinking, because I have 6x6, is I'm going to do a grid on at least one side of it. Over here, these, I could trim these down. I might, but they also tell a story, getting in, crawling, and then crawling out. And then this is the one big picture I have of the whole vehicle. So I want to keep that intact. And this is the pre-brief. All right, so I sped this up as I'm trying to figure out which papers I want to put where. So I'll do that a bit more, and then I'll break away and come back after I've cut the other ones into some 3x3 squares. So at this time I was thinking that I was going to fill the entire thing with 3x3 squares. I end up spacing them out. And I decide that with the 2 big blocks on the other side, I didn't want to just carry that on with 4 big blocks on this side. Here I'm trying to filter out some photos. So I filtered out 2 of them, saved the best ones. I definitely wanted to save the one of the 2 instructors because the taller gentleman there passed away just a couple of years ago from some heart issues, and so I really want to keep that photo of him. And his name was Rob, and the other guy is David. They are crew escape instructors, or were at this time. So here I'm just picking out what other papers I want to put on the other side. I definitely want that orange. I love the plaid. I'm going to repeat the plaid and the constellation. So here we are back. I did add one more paper into the mix, and that is the moon and shooting star paper. I just decided it needed a 4th paper on that side. I had originally just was going for 3. I matted the crew picture on the polka dot paper with a pretty wide mat, and my part of my goal is I want to cover that seam between those 2 papers. And then I also had to add a little strip of the moon and shooting star paper along the right edge of the left-hand piece of paper, just because there was a fraction of an inch of white showing between the 6x6 paper and the 4x6 photos. So by adding that 1-inch strip, it gives me a lot more flexibility in placing those photos. It looks a little less blocky as well. So here I sorted the layout so it was not in an order, but I tried to make sure different papers were not next to each other, either horizontally or vertically. I'm just inking everything, and I chose to ink with a gray, I think it's weathered wood, because there was some gray in one of the papers, specifically the moon paper, and I felt like that was a little bit of a softer, better than black, better than navy, and it just still helps everything pop off the white. So that was, I felt, the right solution for what I was for the look I was going for. Just making sure those faces of the moon paper, that orange paper, is that the moons are in the right direction vertically. So here I have to fuss around a little bit to start getting those lined up. I know I can have 3/4 of an inch on either side and between the columns, because I have 9 inches of paper with 3 3x3s on a 12-inch mat. So it just takes me a few minutes to make sure it's well lined up. And most of these are going to end up getting covered with photos, but you can still tell that there's a grid underneath it. So I'm still very happy with it. I've done a few layouts similar to this, but instead of, I limited the size of the photos to 3x3, or maybe I did the blocks as 3 1/4 by 3 1/4. Which I'll probably do again in the future because I do like that look.
but for this one, I couldn't really cut those photos down to 3x3, or didn't want to reprint them at 3x3. So just continuing on. This is a process, you guys. It takes a little while. This is sped up at 3.5 times speed. Once you have a good 2 rows down, then the rest of it does go pretty fast, though. And I wonder if I noticed that I have that one in a different direction. I'm seeing it now. I don't know if I saw it then. So I'm cutting a little 2x2 square out of this polka dot paper so that I can pull that paper across to this page. And it starts out there, and then I end up moving it because I think I decide to put a journal box up in that top corner. So I'm able to overlap a couple of the photos. So I'm just trying to make sure that they sit inside the grid blocks, and that way you can still tell that it's a 3x3 grid. This center photo I matted so that I could, it does overlap the photos just a tiny bit, the other photos, but not by much. But that way I could sort of scoot it over and offset it, and it gave me a little more space for the crew photo, the overhead crew photo. I did think about inking using that star stencil, but I decided against it. Now I'm just laying in ephemera. So this is not I'm just auditioning pieces. So I had a whole bunch of buttons that I had pulled, which are super old Creative Memories paper buttons. I do end up using them. I didn't have a ton of ephemera because I don't have a lot of primary color ephemera, honestly. But I pulled what I had, and I don't really have any space-themed ephemera, though I do have a few space-themed die cuts. I didn't do them here. I didn't want to put an actual moon on here because shuttles didn't fly to the moon. They flew in this time frame to the International Space Station. So just thinking about title, and I'm going to go off and come back with a title. And here it is. So I found on a Vicky Bouton colorful puffy titles, I found the word fun. It's a really good match for the blues. And then I pulled out some silver, old Creative Memories alpha stickers, and I decided to use those. I didn't think gold was the right color to have here. Definitely silver. And that meant that I needed to add some more silver to the page. And so I do that by, I had some silver holographic paper, so I cut out some little bitty stars. You might be able to see those at the top of the page. And I had cut some of the same size stars out of some of the scraps of paper. And then I have this stretchy cord that's old Stampin' Up, and I use that to tie in the buttons. And so that's a little look of silver there as well. I also made, if you see there, I'm fussing with them right now, some banners. I used a die cut. I usually just hand cut the banners, but I decided to use the die cut so I could get these couple of different shapes, and I used the scraps for those. And that's just to bring in some of that orange paper to that side of the page. Just a good place for some wordy bits and to draw your eye. I do fuss around with this for a little while trying to figure out what I want where. I think it ends up here near the title. A couple of buttons, a tag, some stars. And I do pop up a couple of the buttons, not all of them, but a few of them. Some of them need it because that cord is pretty dimensional on the back side. And then I had a few wordy bits that I had found. And a puffy arrow from that same Vicky Boutin that was in the same color. So just trying to tie things together and make sure. And I had cut some little chevron pieces out of a die set that I have with arrows and a couple of arrows. And so I just tried to use all the scraps that I had made to create additional ephemera. And you can see now I've done the journal box up at the top because I do have quite a bit to say about this, explaining the event, and then Rob and Dave, the instructors, and stuff like that. And then I had this Vicky Boutin big paper clip. And since this is an at-work picture, I thought that was perfect. And I'm going to puff that, I'm going to stick that up on some dimensional, but not at the bottom edge. So I'm going to stick the bottom edge down, and then the rest is going to be with some foam behind it. And that's to give it some dimension. So just trying to find homes for the last little bits. I don't use everything. Those little banners at the top had some gold on them, so I decided not to use them. So here I'm just adhering everything down. It's a really simple page, you know, pretty just graphic and simple, but hey, it's NASA and I'm an engineer. So I think it still fits. It wouldn't be right to have florals or everything real distressed and stuff like that. So I'm happy with the page. It fits the content of the photos. So just finishing up those last touches, popping up some of the buttons. So when I did the little ties in the buttons, I did 2 layers of each and then just tied it in a simple knot on the top. Just because the buttonholes are really pretty big on those buttons, so I wanted to give a little more substance to the quote threads, unquote. So just the last couple items. And just trying to make sure I don't leave valleys, crevices when I do these little ephemera. So just filling that space in with that chipboard phrase. I got those chipboard phrases out of a 49 and Market Sunburst titles and phrases chipboard kit. So they just said little things like fun and I can't remember what else. But I had to pull, I think, only basically the orange items out of there. And maybe yellow. Orange and yellow matched. But that was about it. And this little tag I got out of my ephemera binder. That's working really well. That's where I had these buttons and stuff like that. So it's really helping me use up ephemera that I wouldn't normally have gone in and found. Much easier to see them as I just flip through the album and collect things. So we're just finishing up, and we're going to go into my voice at the time for the
final finishing touches and close-up view of the page. So please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so you can come back for more videos. Okay, I think I'm finished. So I did a column of photos, one feature photo with Bob teaching the crew, and then two of the other instructors here who are good friends. Good fun times, the title. So let's take a look at the little, oh, this looks like it's not stuck down. This is why I do the shaky shake, but sometimes I still miss something. So a little cluster of banners. The title with a cluster here. The 9 3x3 grid. Journaling. So that is some fun times at NASA documented. Thank you.